start the recording if you can.
It's recording, I guess.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. My name is Subhasmita, um, and I have here Aniruddha Abhisman and Parul as well. So we'll be sharing our journey, how we started still being a student, how we all completed our LFX mentorship or GSoC or outreachy, and how we are navigating the cloud native environment. And we'll be sharing some tips with you all how you can do the same and how you can get the most out of open source and get involved in the CNCF community as a whole. We'd also uh, love the interaction. If you could just open your mics and interact with us. This is not any kind of a presentation or anything, just a casual conversation. And yeah, let's start with Avishman. You want to go first? You can share your journey, how you started, how we ended up here.
Sure,
Then
I'll
we
go
can,
ahead.
yeah.
Yeah. Hi everyone. I'm Abhisman Sarkar. I started out with open source, I'd say last year around early last year. I started out with just a simple grammar contribution in a website about about C language, about the C language. And from there on, I started working. I looked into different repositories. I Then I also participated in MLH hackathons. So once we have a group, we form a project and then we host the project on GitHub. So I got more familiar to open source through that then. And then last year, I think around April, I'm not sure the dates. I'm not sure about the dates to be honest, but then around April, I saw that GSoC had its posting that the GSoC organization list was announced, and then I looked through the organizations over there, and then I saw CNCF, and I had an inclination towards cloud native because I'd heard about it before and I heard about Kubernetes before. So I wanted to explore what it was all about. So I looked into that. And then I saw that they have CNCF had their own GitHub README files and their own GitHub repository about all the different open source all the open source programs it has, like the LFX, then GSoC, and also an outreachy. So I looked through GSoC's list of ideas. I went through them and I chose one in particular that I liked the most. It was about the Tough project. Tough, the full form is the update framework. So Tough basically deals with a lot of supply chain security. So a lot of that stuff. And then, so once I got into Tough and I wanted to explore what it was all about. So first thing I did was I joined the Slack channel. I joined the Tough Slack channel. I introduced myself over there. I said who I am, and I also said that I wanted to participate in this year's GSoC. So that was done. And then I slowly started going through the documentation of Tough, went to the talks, went to the README, started asking questions on the public Slack channel. And then I started working on issues, started working on code changes and code contributions. And I think uh, before my deadline for submitting my proposal, which was by 19th, May, or I'm not sure about the dates, but I think it was in May or March. So before my deadline, I had worked on around 4 or 5 issues. I solved them, and then I submitted my proposal, and then I got accepted into the program. So I worked through GSoC. I worked through the time period, and then it ended in September. Yeah, it ended on 13th of September, and that was it. So like that was how I worked through it.
Did you enjoy working at GSoC projects?
I did. I did enjoy it a lot. Like I learned a lot about open source and how to work with, how to collaborate with people online, like, and how to manage my time schedule. Because my mentors, the funny thing is, like, both of them, they're from the US, so I had to manage my timings. Like I had to meet with them either early in the morning or late at night. So it was something that I had to manage, but it was fun because I learned a lot in the
Yeah,
process.
What technologies did you work? Like what kind of technologies?
So I worked with Python mostly because I was working on the Python implementation of TUF, and I was working on implementing TAP 14. So TAP stands for TUF Augmentation Proposal. So TAP 14 initially, what it brought was it brought backwards compatibility changes to TUF, so that any major version upgrade, if TUF would have in the future, then those upgrades would be backwards compatible. So that what my changes brought.
that's great. That's a great addition to the tough project.
Thank you. It's not.
Yeah, yeah, please go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah. So the thing is, like, it's my work. Like, TAP 14 hasn't been fully implemented yet because it's still. I'm still working, and right now I worked on like I'd say around 65% of the project, and then I handed it over to my mentors because my semester exams has started after from end September, I think. So I handed that the rest of the project to my mentors, on not my mentors, but to other people or to the other maintainers in the repository, and they are continuing working on it. And I'm also putting in my inputs from time to time about how I think stuff should work.
You're still a student, right? Yeah, in your final
Yeah,
year,
yeah.
I think.
I'm in my yes, yes.
Right. We are all in the same boat. How
Yeah.
about Parul?
Yeah, so hey everyone. First of all, I want to ensure that I'm completely audible.
Yeah, you're very clear and audible.
Yeah. So yeah, as Subhasmita said, I am also a final year CAC undergrad, and my timeline with open source began late 2020 when I joined Kubernetes, the Kubernetes community as a release team shadow, and been there since the past 4 release cycles. For the first 2 release cycles, I was a release note shadow. And then for the next two, I was an enhancement shadow, and I'm aiming to explore all the verticals of it, like shadowing all the subgroups or SIGs and subteams of the release team as well. And for LFX, I applied for the summer term of 2022 for a cross-plane project. And yeah, my application got selected. And the takeaways from that program, I guess there are a few common takeaways regardless of which program you're enrolled into, whether it be GSoC or Outreachy or LFX for that matter. As Abhisman mentioned, that yes, you get to work with mentors who are in different time zones, so you learn how to manage your time well. Um, and some of the takeaways that I would cherish for a lifetime would be the takeaways from a developer perspective. My debugging skills were enhanced, and so it was not just restricted to Googling the error and going to GitHub discussions and Slack discussions on similar errors or something of the sort. But it also included going through logs and checking what had been happening in the whole environment, the development environment. For me, it was my kind cluster, the Kubernetes cluster that I had been using for testing all the unit tests that I had written. My project was aimed, like the Crossplane project that I contributed to was aimed at generating unit tests that would test the whole process of downloading and installing private packages from registries that are supported by Crossplane. And that involved essentially working with Golang. I was not very well versed with Golang before the project initiated, but by the end of it, I really can say that I had gained a good idea and good insights of using Golang and playing around with it, writing unit tests and stuff. Other than that, I guess that would be pretty much it from the perspective of any open source program as such. But yeah, here and there I have been playing around with a few other projects in the C and CF landscape, which is very huge, and exploring all the projects is definitely a tedious task. But I am definitely ardent at getting an insight of at least projects from each subcategories one or two projects from each of the subcategories. And supply chain security is something that I'm really looking forward to, having attended a few talks revolving around it at the Open Source Summit Dublin. So yeah, I'm pretty much excited what I get to learn over here and what I get to share right now.
That's great. So, like, it's a common fact that once you start with the community, it gives a lot, and you try to contribute something, and you get back a lot more in return. So that's the beauty of the community that we are in, and it's not about LFX or Outreach or GSoC or Winter of Code, anything, any open source. There are a lot of open source programs going on out here right now, right there, or at all times of the year. So you can try participating in them. Basically, you can still contribute to open source without participating in all of these programs as well. But participating in programs gives you an edge over what you have currently in your learning environment. For example, like if you're learning a single language and you're contributing to any project, large scale project, you'll be working with a lot more, like 5 or 10 more different um, technologies while you are doing any task. You're in a curriculum and you follow that, and you learn a lot more in a tight schedule than while doing on your own, right? And you also get mentors who will guide you through it. They will give you a lot more like career advices and developer advices that will be helpful in the long run as well. So yeah, these were Abhisman and Parul's entire open source journey. I hope you are still contributing to the project.
Yes,
That,
Yep,
we are.
that's
Like,
that's a
what
lifetime
about
part,
you?
right? That
What you're doing?
me,
Yeah.
you're asking me. I'll go last. Let's move on to you about you. Yeah, let's
Yeah.
start how
So,
you started. What are you doing currently, and how you ended up here?
like my open source journey started back in 2018. So I used to contribute to Python, using Python to various Mozilla projects. Like I used to write their Django APIs and all this stuff. Later, I shifted my interest to operating systems and started contributing to various like CodeOS and Flatcar Linux, container Linux stuff from Microsoft projects, open source. And later in the early this year, I started like contributing to various Kubernetes and CNCF projects. And I started with Cluster API. I solved few of the like good first issues, and then I like one of my friend gave me this like LFX things, and I applied in like this summer term, and I got selected in the Cluster API GCP project, where I and my co-mentee Subhasmita contributed and create like added support for uh, GPUs for Cluster API GCP. And
Can you
right
just
now,
give a little background, like what Cluster API is and what
yeah, so like
GCP
cluster
extension to it?
APIs, yeah, so cluster API is like it's a we have different kind of like Kubernetes cluster manage and unmanaged clusters. Like it's a managed cluster API. So you manage your Kubernetes clusters with the Kubernetes cluster. So you have different like you have a controller node which is like controlling your entire like you have a cluster API instance deployed in a like in a cloud environment, and that cloud environment is watching another like the Kubernetes cluster that is working for a specific workload and is managing whatever downtime or uptime and scaling down, scaling up, whatever it is everything is done by the cluster API. So you write the cluster API things, and cluster API will manage your workload clusters.
That's basically you make your lives easier with managing
Yeah.
Kubernetes entirely. Yeah.
Yeah. So right now I am the first like our cluster API team has launched a release team, and I am the first like CI signal release shadow for cluster API team. And I'm currently working as an intern in defense.com as a software engineer intern. Yep,
That's
that's the
great.
life about. Yeah, now your
And
turn.
yeah, my turn. So okay, my open source journey started like Around the end of 2020, I participated in Winter of Code, and from there, I was basically into machine learning and stuff, and I was starting with Python. What is Avi saying? This is not complex actually. The thing is, if you see it on an overall thing, whatever technology or whatever project you contribute to it, you'll get into it once you start solving issues or communicating with the community members, right? So it will not be very complex if you start. Once you start, it looks so overwhelming. It was overwhelming for me as well when I started. I had seen the Kubernetes project in 2020 as well, but I couldn't touch it because of the large code base it had. So I did not do anything with Kubernetes then. It took me 6 months to get one of my PR merged. So you can think how much overwhelming it could be. But I assure you, once you get started, once you get interacting with the community, it will be all very easy. It will sound very easy to you once you start. That's the first step. Start taking the first step is the most difficult one. So you'll have to take your step, and then everything will go again. Yeah. So about me, I started with Winter of Code at the end of 2020, and I contributed to a deep learning project. Like I'll not go very details into that. Then COVID happened, and we all stayed at home. And then I started contributing little to every project that I came across. Then I was introduced to the Kubernetes CNCF community, where I started contributing to Kubernetes projects like website and the main repository. I started very small with few grammatical changes or addition to the documentations. And then I participated, I applied to LFX and Outreach as well. And luckily I got into both, and I completed my Outreach internship and LFX in the summer term. So for Outreach, I worked with Apache Camel K. It's just an extension of Apache's operators. And then for LFX, I worked with Aniruddha, along with Aniruddha for extending the GPU functionality in Clustered API, GCP provider. And I'm currently working at CIVO as a site reliability engineering intern. Yeah, I've also had shadowed in Kubernetes 1.26 release, this one. So for a reminder, the release applications are still open. They're open. So if anybody wants to apply for being a shadow, they can apply through it. If anybody can share the link, let me just check if I have the link. I can share, I'll share in the chat. If anybody is interested, they can start. It's a great way to learn how everything works around all of the 6, that is special interest groups we have in Kubernetes. So that will be much fun. You get to interact with a lot of people there. Yeah. How many of you are applying? Nobody?
Not me. I'm still waiting on my first issue in Kubernetes. Kubernetes is still a bit too complex for me at the moment. Yeah.
It looks like at the beginning. Yeah, great.
Exactly.
A lot of people are doing. Oh, Leon already did. Looking forward. I'll also apply. I'm being a little lazy, just got my exams over. So I'll also be applying to it. I highly encourage you all to start with any project you like, any tech stack you are currently doing or anything. Just start with just get into the community, start the Slack channels, get into the Slack channels, introduce yourselves. Introducing yourself is a very important part. You get to interact with the people that are starting, and you can just start away with reading the documentation, making any changes that you feel like it's important or it is missing, or if you feel like there's a part that you are not able to understand, you can clarify that. So beginners like us are always highly encouraged to start contributing, because these high level projects need a beginner perspective as well, right? They also need a beginner perspective to let the other beginners that are starting with to understand. So that's a very important role you play. Don't think that whatever you are contributing to, it's just a waste of time, or it's just a simple documentation you're uploading, you're updating. That's no use. No, it's not actually that. Every contribution, even if it's just a semicolon, you can say, it's very important for the entire project. So just start. Don't think it will be hard. It will be easy. Take help with your peers. You can ask any of us. You can reach out to any of us through Slack or through Twitter, or any handle that you can find helpful. Okay. What do we have? Being in open source with limited or no prior experience, how do we make our cover letter outstanding? Attention to the mentor, increases chance of getting selected. See, on the cover letter is not the only point of you getting selected, right? What in cover letter you are presenting is your work or yourself, or your interest in doing that. First of all, you need to start looking into the project. You need to develop, understanding of the project. You need to get involved in it. If you like the project, that's very good. If you don't like, then just move on to another project that you like. You can contribute to it. You know the ins and out of the project. And while you write a cover letter, you'll have to show interest. Like for an example, you are working on a feature, right? And you think you can suggest something else that could also improve the project entirely. So you can mention that in your cover letter. You can mention what all you have done, like not listing the full request that you did, just overall general summary of what you added, what all addition you did to the project, and what you want to do with the project. Why basically a cover letter wants any mentor that is actually reading a cover letter who will read, why are you interested in this project, right? Why are you interested, and what will you bring to this project? That's the major part. All right, wait. I'm just missing out. And don't worry about getting selected. Okay, that's the secondary part. Enjoying the process is the first part. You enjoy doing what you do. You love what you're doing, and getting selected and doing all of these things are the secondary part. You'll get it as a bonus point, or you can say as your reward of putting your heart into this project.
Yeah, contributing to any project doesn't mean that you have to get selected. You have to do it from your heart, that you are learning something. Yeah, even when I was contributing to Cluster API, I actually applied for GSoC for Cluster API. I didn't got selected for GSoC, but I got selected for LFX. So it's not like you didn't select it for GSoC means you won't be learning.
Open source is
Yeah.
not just limited to these programs, right? It's the community that is the main thing that you're getting into. If you say that I'm joining any program because of the mentorship, you can get mentorship from any community member that you're right now in, right? And what does shadow mean? Okay, shadow actually every in Kubernetes, for example, there's a release cycle, right? There's a release cycle that happens every quarter or every 6 months, you can say. So shadow are as you can say, you are just learning how the entire release process goes on, so that you can take up the role of a lead, release lead next term, or you're just learning under a lead that you'll be succeeding over in the next term. This sorry to mess up. What is LFX? Okay, how does LFX mentorship work? Basically, LFX mentorship are open like 3 times a year, I think. I'm not sure. Yeah, three times a
3
year.
semesters, fall, spring, and summer.
Yeah, you can apply to any of them, and you'll just have to prepare a cover letter, and that's it. I don't think, and you'll be needing a resume. And there's one thing that I would suggest, and I would highly suggest that it's starting. If you want to get involved in the community, start early. That's the basic part. Start early. This will give you an edge over anything. You'll get a better understanding. You can start right away if you get selected, or if you don't get selected even, you'll make valuable
You can
connections
discuss
there.
with your mentors what you are going to do and what is your plan, what things are needed. All these things you can discuss in prior, so it will help you in the long term as well as in the application as well.
Yeah, if you, it's like this is not actually the thing that you can always take in. It's not always you're taking something from the mentorship. Mentors, sometimes mentors also learn from you as well. So it's just a give and take policy, not just a take policy. So don't worry about like I'll just learn, I'll not do anything. Your contribution also makes us learn, right? Also the mentors learn. So it's just a communication two-way round thing, not just a one-way round thing. Has anyone ever found the answer to why should you be selected for this? Why should you be
If
selected for this? The answer actually
I
lies in your question. You are already writing a cover letter and you are saying why should you be selected? What are you good at? What you will be contributing to and what will you bring to the table? That's what matters. Yeah, Abhishman, you were saying something. Sorry, I interrupted.
That's just fine. Yeah, so I like to highlight 3 points if you want to have a strong chance of getting selected into any program, I'd say. So the first point is be active in the community, be it Slack or Discord or anything, just be active. The second point is have meaningful contributions, have be it code or be it documentation changes, make sure that they're meaningful and they have an impact. And the third point that I'd like to highlight is that have a good proposal. So now the proposal might be program or organization specific. You might have to go into the details for that, but have a good proposal. So these are the 3 points that I like to highlight. Be active, have meaningful contributions, and have a good proposal.
Neha has shared a few tips there, so you can check the chat. Neha, do you want to share something? She's also a fellow LFX mentee. She had been a former one, actually. And she's also very active in the community. You can find her everywhere in Kubernetes community. Neha, are you there?
Hello, yes.
Hi. Kanisha, you want to share something? You want to share any tips for the upcoming mentees?
So,
Or
yes, like just wanna say, like if you are stepping ahead into open source, like make sure that you actively communicate with the maintainers and the mentors of the project, like show how much you have put up the efforts to understand the project, and yes, it will work ahead. Like you will slowly get into the flow of the project.
don't just think about the rewards. Just just do it what you love. If you love doing it, just do it, and you'll get the rewards as a byproduct. I'd highly suggest everyone here, if they have not started looking into projects, you can look into the CNCF landscape there, and you can find a lot of projects to your interest. And then you can start with the communicating with the team, with the community there by joining the Slack channels, and then looking into good first issues in the GitHub, and then start right away. You'll get the hang of it in no time. I think we only have 5 minutes left for this meeting.
So if someone want to speak up and like ask something, they can ask. We can have a small Q&A.
No one.
I can
By the
go
way,
ahead.
if
Oh,
yeah, yeah, please
sure.
go ahead.
So I had one tip to say actually, and that's the thing that when you're if you are new in open source, you will have many questions, and there are questions which you won't get on Google or which you won't get online, and you have to ask the maintainers questions about the issue you're facing. So it's important that you ask good questions. And good questions, it means that you suppose there's some certain issue which you are facing at the moment. You mentioned to the maintainers, or you mentioned to the maintainers what the issue is that you're facing and what you have done from your side to work on that issue. and then what you may think that, and whatever you might think might be a possible solution. So it's important that you ask good questions while you're asking any questions to the maintainers. And how this helps is that it helps to personalize a question, I'd say, not exactly personalized, but it doesn't give out a general question to the maintainer, and it helps the maintainer to solve a question much easier.
Yeah, that's a great point. You need to be very respectful, like considerate while personally texting anyone. But I'd highly suggest if you have any queries related to the project, you can ask in the public channel first. You'll get a lot of responses from there. The mentors or anybody else you're personally DMing, they might be busy at some point, so there might be some delay while replying to you. So it's highly requested if you can put your queries in the personal, in the public channels. Other than
Dakar
Kaggle for
is
machine learning,
asking what are the tech stack is needed to contribute to CAPG and CAPI related stuff. It's mostly if you know a little bit of a Golang, it is very helpful. And basic understanding of Kubernetes is a plus. You don't need to be a lot of guru in the Kubernetes and all. I didn't knew a lot about Kubernetes at first, but I had a basic idea of Golang, how things works, and in general programming, that is a plus. Yeah, and you can
you
start
can
with
learn on
good
the
first
go.
issues. Yeah, you can learn on the go.
Yeah, you can start with good first issues and just start with the documentation, get an overview, and you'll get to
Start
understand what
your
it is.
own
And
CAPI cluster
yeah,
in local with Docker. It will help.
start following the documentation there. Do the things that are already listed. Follow the tutorials, and yeah, and we'll also be having more of these mentoring sessions in the future as well. I'd highly request all of you that those who want to share, they can join. If they want to get some help with, you can just do that. And apart from it, you all can also connect with us on our social media handles or Twitters. Uh, if anybody want to just get the connection, you can share their Twitter handles over there in the chat. Aniruddha, I think we can stop recording. We can have the last minute for ourselves.